Empress Cyrathia raised her scepter, its sunstone apex flaring with captured plasma, silencing the vaulted throne chamber. By the eternal cycle of the Thalori Imperium, she intoned, voice resonant through the crystal amplifiers, I, Cyrathia of the Seventh Ascendance, reaffirm my hereditary sovereignty. The Grand Fleet bends to my command, and the Sun Quartz priesthood sanctifies this lineage unbroken since the Void Wars. Her gaze swept the assembled nobles, their iridescent scales shimmering under the dome's simulated aurora. We stand unyielding against barbaric fringes, humans chief among them, whose fleeting cultures breed chaos unfit for imperial harmony. Murmurs rippled like heat haze from the council tiers, but none dared contradict. Cyrathia lowered the scepter, feeling the familiar weight of expectation settle. Stability was her charge, the priesthood's rituals bound it, the fleet enforced it. Humans, primitive upstarts, their vessels crude hulks propelled by chemical fury rather than gravitic elegance. She had studied their dossiers, short-lived, fractious, their diplomacy, a veil for expansion. Yet here, in the heart of her court, politics gnawed at propriety. High Counselor Vexer rose from the shadowed dais, his crest flattened in deference, though his tail tip twitched with unease. Sovereign, the border skirmishes with the Krell Dominion escalate. Our projections show a 3-cycle blockade unsustainable without reinforcement. He activated a holo projection, jagged frontier lines pulsing red, Terran coalition frigates probing Thalori outposts like vermin at a wound. The Terrans offer alliance, a sealed treaty exchanging shield lattice schematics for their inertial dampeners. In exchange, Vexar's frills quivered. An arranged consort from their ranks to symbolize unity, binding per the Sun Court's oath seal. Cyrathia's mandibles clicked softly, a private fracture in her composure. The priesthood had compelled this weeks prior, invoking an ancient promise, imperial oaths to foster harmonious expansion against greater threats. She had intended scorn, a ceremonial farce, the human dismissed post-ratification. But the Krell's plasma lances had claimed 3 cruisers last cycle. Denial risked fracture. The treaty avails, she declared, stealing her voice. Prepare the pledge chamber. Let the human arrive under guard. No liberties beyond the ritual. The chamber doors parted with a hydraulic sigh, admitting a phalanx of sentinel drones humming with restraint fields. Flanked by them strode the human, Commander Jonah Mercer, dossier confirmed. Taller than expected, his frame lean yet unyielding, clad in a Terran envoy's tunic of matte black, insignia glinting like distant stars. No ornate robes, no deference in his stride. Merely a quiet assessment of the chamber, eyes flicking to the ritual dais without awe. Cyrathia's engineers had briefed her, designated technical officer ostensibly for the tech exchange, but ceremonial consort in title. Limitations were absolute. Monitored quarters, no unsupervised access. Translation implant mandatory. Commander Mercer, she said, her words filtering through the universal translator embedded in his collar. You stand before the Sun Throne. Kneel for the pledge. Jonah halted precisely at the demarcation line etched in sunstone filigree. He inclined his head, not a bow, but acknowledgement, then knelt with economical grace. Empress Cyrathia, honored to serve the Alliance. His voice was steady, accent neutral, carrying no Terran bravado. Up close, she noted the faint scars on his knuckles, relics of some manual labor unfit for nobility. The priesthood intoned the rite, their chants syncing with the dais' core mechanism, a crystalline resonator channeling solar harmonics to bind oaths across neural webs. Cyrathia extended her primary claw, interfacing with the node. Jonah mirrored with a palm press, his skin paling slightly against the chill crystal. The resonator hummed, frequencies aligning. It faltered. A dissonant screech erupted, harmonics fracturing into static. Lights dimmed, the hollow seals flickered. Gasps echoed from the engineer's alcove. Vexar lunged forward, frills splaying in alarm. Containment breach! The lattice is destabilizing! Evacuate! Cyrathia's crest flared instinctively, pulse quickening. A ritual failure here. Omen of collapse, the court would whisper. But Jonah did not withdraw. Still kneeling, he scanned the dais with clinical focus, murmuring into his wrist comm. Power surge at tertiary node. Thalori specs? An engineer barked data through the translator. Jonah nodded once, then pried open a service panel with bare hands. No tools, just leverage from a loosened seam. His fingers danced across exposed conduits, rerouting a plasma thread with a makeshift shunt from his tunic's utility cord. Sparks flew. He endured without flinching, rerouting harmonics manually while the engineers scrambled for protocols. The resonator stabilized. Hum resumed, pure and resonant. The pledge sealed in a blaze of light. Silence gripped the chamber. Cyrathia withdrew her claw, mandibles parting in rare surprise. The human rose, wiping residue from his hands, expression unchanged, as if field repairs were commonplace. Engineer Lirith approached cautiously, scanner probing the fix. Impossible. That improvisation bridged a quaternary cascade we model in Sims only. How did you pattern from your public schematics? Jonah replied evenly. Humans multitask repairs under duress. Keeps us alive in the field. No boast, merely fact. Lirith's eyes widened, tail curling in guarded fascination. He signaled subordinates to document. Cyrithia quelled the stir with a raised claw.
Competence. Unbidden.
Yet it pricked. Humans as inferiors? This one had preserved her dignity where her own faltered. Before she could speak, Lord Caliph of the Old Crest surged from his tier, robes billowing like storm clouds. Blasphemy, his voice boomed, invoking the chamber's amplifiers. Ancient statute of purity. Cycle 9, no union beyond the scaled kin shall taint the sunline. This treaty profanes our blood. Rescind it now, sovereign, or the priesthood withdraws sanction. Opposition ignited. Nobles shifted. Caliph's faction. Conservatives clinging to isolation. Their fleets loyal but rigid. Whispers swelled. The human's touch corrupts. Omen ignored invites doom. Vexer tensed beside her, claws flexing. Cirithia's gaze locked on Caliph, her posture unyielding. Fracture here could splinter the court. The fleet's admirals watched from orbital feeds. Dismissal risked rebellion. Indulgence. Weakness. Lord Caliph, she said, voice like tempered aloe. Statutes bend to sovereignty. The Sun Court ratified this pact under my oath. Challenge it formally, if you dare.
Caliph's frills pulsed defiance.
I invoke audit, verify this intruder's credentials. Expose the Terran deceit. The chamber held its breath. Zyrathia considered, scorn the human outright, fuel division? Or probe, controlled? Jonah stood silent, hands clasped, betraying no impatience. His repair lingered in her mind, not rote but adaptive, bridging what her engineers approached systematically. Audit granted, she decreed. Full credential verification by the priesthood and fleet intelligence. Supervised. She turned to Jonah, her translator, relaying precisely. Commander Mercer, you will brief my engineers privately, under watch. Demonstrate your technical office without presumption. John's eyes met hers, steady, no subservience. As you command, Empress. Full transparency. Caliph subsided, glowering, but the court exhaled. Crisis contained, for now. Zerathia felt the propriety crack further, a sliver of intrigue amid duty. This human, meant for scorn, had steadied her throne. What other impossibilities hid in that unassuming frame? The alliance bound her, but curiosity, dangerous, personal, stirred beneath. Vexer lingered. Sovereign. The fix. Unprecedented. Shall I query Terran archives? Discreetly, she murmured, watching the human's retreating form. Pride demanded distance, but survival whispered alliance. The promise forced her hand. Now, competence forced reassessment. In the shadow of Krell guns, she would not scorn what proved essential. Lord Varak's herald struck the resonant crystal 3 times, its chime slicing through the Sun Court's vaulted chamber, like a blade drawn in shadow. By ancient right of the Third Veil, House Krell petitions the sovereign to annul the Terran consort station and elevate Lord Thalarix as bondkeeper, lest impurity fracture the Imperium's core. Gasps rippled among the assembled priests and nobles, their iridescent scales flushing with the thrill of schism. Empress Sarathia sat enthroned at the chamber's apex, her crest rigid, golden eyes unblinking as the petition scroll unfurled before her. Pride coiled tight in her chest. Krell's gambit was bold, timed to exploit the treaty's fresh ink, but it reeked of desperation. She let silence stretch, watching Varak's mandibles twitch with anticipation. The treaty binds us, she said at last, voice a silken command that quelled the murmurs. House Krell's zeal honors the veil, yet rejects the star's decree. Petition noted. Proceed to audit. As the court dissolved into fractious whispers, Sirathia rose, her robes whispering against the polished obsidian floor, advisors clustered like vigilant drones, High Priestess Lyra urging caution, Admiral Thorne demanding fleet maneuvers, but her gaze lingered on the antechamber where Jonah Mercer had vanished moments before. Competence, she admitted inwardly, had glimpsed its edge in him. Now politics tested its blade. In the engineer's cloister below the palace spires, Jonah Mercer inclined his head to the Sun Court technician assigned as his overseer. Protocol duties noted, Engineer Vex. Systems review and ceremonial alignment. I'm ready. The Thalori's multifaceted eyes narrowed, compound lenses whirring faintly as he scanned Jonah's unadorned human frame. Humans were curiosities, fragile in atmosphere and form, yet this one moved with quiet purpose, accepting the post without protest. Vex gestured to the holographic nexus pulsing with palace schematics. Attend the relays. Note variances. Speak only if queried. Jonah nodded, sliding into the workstation. His fingers danced across the interface, adapting to the Filori glyph locks with the ease of prior drills. Terran neural links had prepped him, but he downplayed it as rote familiarity. While mirroring protocol calibrations, he multitasked, eyes flicking to auxiliary feeds, mapping ventilation flows, power surges, access choke points. A faint anomaly flickered in sublevel 3 irregular heat bloom, masked but not invisible. He logged it discreetly, no alarm raised. Routine, he thought. Just another system begging a second look. Hours blurred. Jonah endured without falter, ignoring the creeping fatigue that would have sidelined lesser operatives. Vex paused once, venting surprise scent. The lorry rest in phases. Human habit keeps the mind sharp. The formal procession convened at dusk, crystal-lit avenues thrumming with anticipation. Visiting counselor Elandra, envoy from the fringe worlds, glided at the fore, her entourage trailing banners of neutral houses. Zerathia observed from the imperial dais. Jonah positioned at the engineer's flank per protocol. Ceremonial shadow, nothing more. Whispers of Krell's petition lingered like smoke, Nobles' scales dimming with factional heat. Then, the air hummed wrong. Jonah's pattern sense snapped. A vendor cart shadow lingered too long, its undercarriage venting unnatural ozone. Explosive yield, proximity fused, targeted at Elandra's path. 20 seconds to bloom. Engineer Vex, divert left flank, now. Jonah's voice cut sharp. No hierarchy invoked, just command born of crisis. Vex hesitated a heartbeat, then barked orders. Jonah lunged forward, weaving through the procession's edge, barking to bystanders. Counselor's honor. Witnesses. Mark the cart. His words carried Terran cadence, clear amid Filori sibilance, pulling nobles into motion. He grabbed a young attendant's arm, steering her aside while palming a scanner from his belt. Improvised jammer, pulsing interference. The cart shuddered. A muffled crump echoed as the device armed prematurely. Flames licking harmlessly upward. Chaos crested, then ebbed, under Jonah's orchestration. He secured 3 witnesses, shaken vendors, their testimonies locked via quick holorecords, before guards swarmed. Zerathia descended the dais in a whirl of robes, her presence parting the crowd like a solar flare.
Seal the grounds!
No exit until swept. Advisors surged forward. Lyra hissing. Exile the Terran. This reeks of his kind's discord. Thorn nodding grimly. The petition proves it. Purge the anomaly. Her gaze locked on Jonah, dust-streaked but steady, witnesses clustering at his signal.
No, she overrode, voice thunder in velvet.
The human diffused peril where you dawdled. Palace-wide audit, full spectrum. Mercer leads the engineering sweep. Murmurs shifted, scales brightening with reluctant curiosity. Krell's faction recoiled, but pragmatism pierced their veil. In the sealed war room, audit feeds bloomed across the nexus. Jonah cross-referenced the cart's residue. Exotic alloys, traceable to inner-house forges. Anti-human markers, he noted calmly, linking it to petition rhetoric via pattern-matched rhetoric logs. Faction rhetoric spiked pre-incident. Supply chains converge on Varric's retainers. Vex leaned in, mandibles agape.
Impossible precision. The Lori augurs take cycles for such threads.
Zerathia watched from the throne link, her advisors subdued. Evidence chained the plot to Krell's anti-treaty hardliners. Subtle, damning. Court murmurs evolved. From scorn to the soft-shelled one sees shadows we miss. Pragmatic interest bloomed, nobles querying Jonah's methods with newfound deference. She summoned him post-audit, the chamber emptying to echoes. Your skills pierce veils I overlooked. Jonah met her eyes evenly, no boast. Team effort, Empress. Vex's relays gave the grid. I just connected dots. Pride warred with necessity in her distance, eroding under competence's weight.
You remain under oversight, she decreed, signaling guards. Personal detail assigned. Lyra and Thorn's pick.
Assist investigations, within palace bounds. Jonah nodded, humble acceptance masking the thrill of utility. Understood. Where do we start? As they departed, a shadow stirred in the sublevels, unseen eyes tracking the pair, a hidden strike brewing in the palace's veins. Zerathia felt it instinctively, her hand twitching toward the comm. Ignore him no longer, survival demanded the human at her side. Pride bent but did not break. Lord Vesperak rose in the Senate vault, his iridescent robes flaring like fractured obsidian, voice slicing through the chamber's hum. Empress Zerathia, The Alliance Treaty binds us to this human novelty, but not to folly. I move to rescind Commander Mercer's privileges, his access to sealed vaults, his seat at briefings, and nominate Thalor Prime Caliph as ceremonial consort. Let us review the human's contributions publicly, lest he prove mere ornament. Zyrathia sat unyielding on the throne dais, her crest pulsing faint azure against the vaulted glow of judgment orbs. The shadow from the sublevels lingered in her mind's periphery, a chill uncoiling despite the equatorial heat. Jonah Mercer stood at her flank, posture straight but unobtrusive, his Terran uniform a stark contrast to the rippling silks around him. She felt the court's eyes, probing, predatory, yet her hand remained steady on the armrest. Pride bent, survival demanded proof. The motion is noted, Lord Vesperak. Review shall proceed.
Commander Mercer, you will demonstrate your role in the palace's astromechanical integrity. Proceed to the primary seals.
Jonah inclined his head. No flourish, just calm acknowledgement.
As you command, Empress.
He moved without haste, threading past whispering nobles toward the vault's lower access grate. Zyrathia watched, her inner lids narrowing. Thalori engineers managed those seals by rote, cyclic recalibrations, ancestral protocols etched in crystal matrices. Microfractures? They accumulated like imperial debts, tolerated until cascade failure. A human untrained in Thalori harmonics, tasked with repair? The grate hissed open on his approach, admitting him to the sublevel glow. Hollow projections flickered to life above the dais, piping his work for all to witness. Jonah knelt amid the throbbing conduits, gauntleted hands dancing over interfaces that Thalori claws navigated with deliberate precision. His fingers, blunt, furless, pried a diagnostic panel free, eyes scanning readouts at a velocity that made Zyrathia's lead engineer, Thalor Voss, twitch in his seat. Impossible, Voss muttered, crest flickering ochre surprise. Those fracture harmonics require harmonic attunement. Humans lack the neural resonators. Jonah ignored the broadcast chatter. Sweat beaded his brow, endurance without the Thalori's cooling vents, but he worked on, rerouting power flows while cross-referencing supply logs on a secondary pad. Multitasking, Zyrathia noted, as if juggling conduit pulses and inventory discrepancies were breath. He isolated a microfracture cascade, not with standard dampeners but by improvising a feedback loop from auxiliary grav plates. Alien ingenuity weaving Terran field theory into Thalori grids. Sparks danced. The seals hummed steady for the first time in cycles. The chamber fell silent as the hollow stabilized green. Nobles leaned forward, crests rippling in discordant hues. Shock, envy, calculation. Vesperak's mandibles clicked faintly. Zyrathia rose, voice resonant steel. Thalor Voss, convene your cadre. Full technical review. Compare Mercer's reconfiguration to Imperial baselines. Present before court recess. No delays. Voss bowed low, scrambling with his juniors, their tablets already alight with frantic queries. As the engineers dispersed, Zyrathia caught Jonah's return, face composed, wiping residue from his hands. He met her gaze briefly, a nod of simple completion, no boast. Humble competence. It unsettled her more than any grandstanding. In the antechamber, Voss's team labored under her watchful eye. Schematics bloomed across wall screens. Mercer's fix shunted fracture energy into redundant loops, boosting efficiency by 17%. Figures no Thalori protocol had touched.
He adapted our matrix on site, one junior stammered, gills flaring.
Predicted the next fracture vector from supply chain impurities. We model by epochs. He connected it all. Zyrathia nodded once. Record it formally. Transmit to Synod archives. But whispers reached her through the palace webs. Vesperak's faction stirred. In a dim engineering alcove, Lord Vesperak's proxy, Noble Lirith, slid a crystal chip toward Voss's second, Engineer Terran. Falsify the variances. Amplify the risks in his innovation. The Empress clings to this human bauble. We preserve purity. Terran's crest blanched bone white, recoiling. Lord, such sabotage. Discretion assured. Lirith's voice was silk over venom. The exchange beamed into open registry, Jonah's earlier protocol tweak, a subtle audit trail he'd woven into the seals during repair. Alarms chimed softly, the full record projected unbidden into the returning Senate feed. Zyrathia felt the shift like a tide turn. Vesperak surged to his feet, but she preempted, voice carrying absolute.
Court records reveal an attempt to pervert truth.
Noble Lirith, explain. Gasps rippled, crests flared crimson outrage. Lirith paled, stammering retreat. Vesperak's faction huddled, exposed. Jonah stepped forward unbidden, voice even. Empress, if I may. The bribe highlights supply chain vulnerabilities, impure conduit alloys feeding those fractures. I propose reforms, cross-species audits, Terran pattern matching with Thalori harmonics, open registry for all technical bids. It strengthens the palace, not undermines. Audible from the registry, Terran's prior refusal, broadcast crisp. I serve the Imperium's truth, not coin. The human's work holds. Zyrithia assessed him, flawless poise amid the storm, refusing corruption without fanfare. His eyes held no triumph, only quiet resolve. The Lori noble's prized lineage, this human forged footing through deeds. Her pride cracked further, admitting necessity. The motion to rescind is denied, she declared, throne orbs pulsing approval. Commander Mercer will lead the supply chain inspection. Seat him at strategic briefings henceforth. Procedural authority granted. Vesperak bowed stiffly, retreating with his allies, but Voss approached Jonah openly now, crest steady teal respect. Your loop, elegant. May I observe the next calibration? Jonah smiled faintly, pack bonding, effortless. Your baselines gave the foundation. Zirathia watched the exchange, a warmth uncoiling against imperial chill. The shadow in the sublevels loomed larger, but now with an ally whose ceremonial hands mended what her court could not. Pride bent toward partnership. The human proved no token, but a keystone. As the session dissolved into murmurs, she signaled Jonah close. Well played, Commander. The court sees it now. His response was simple humility. Just the job, Empress. Fractures wait for no one. In that moment, amid the vault's fading glow, Zirathia glimpsed the galaxy's misjudgment. What Terrans deemed routine was the Lori legend, and survival? It hinged on this unassuming human at her side, yet the webs whispered of deeper plots. Vesperak's retreat too neat, the sublevel eyes multiplying.
She placed a claw-like touch on Jonah's arm. Formal propriety fraying.
Stay vigilant. He nodded, reading her unspoken tension, the emotional intelligence that pierced her regal mask. Together, then, the vault emptied, but alliance solidified, one repair at a time. High Priest Vorak's crest flared crimson as he slammed the ancestral codex onto the polished obsidian dais, his multifaceted eyes locking onto Zirathia's throne. By the lattice law of the First Weave, Empress, we demand immediate severance of all interspecies ties. The human taints our sacred fleet. His presence invites the void's unraveling. Zirathia felt the chamber's air thicken, the Sun Court priests murmuring in resonant waves that vibrated her throne's armrests. Arrayed in their golden vestments, they represented the Imperium's spiritual spine, their influence woven into every hull and helm. To defy them outright risked fracturing the fleet's loyalty, yet the treaty with Terra hung by threads she'd personally forged. Jonah Mercer stood at her right, his posture straight but unassuming, human eyes scanning the assembly with that quiet intensity she'd come to recognize, not defiance, but calculation. She raised a scaled hand, silencing the hum. The lattice law speaks of purity and crisis-proven, Vorak. Present your evidence of taint, or this invocation remains a shadow without substance. Vorak's mandibles clicked sharply. The sabotages multiply. Power relays fried in the vault, navigation lattices glitching across 3 dreadnoughts. Human hands were near the last breach. Coincidence? The weave demands purity now. Murmurs swelled again, nobles in the gallery shifting with crests half raised in agreement. Zirathia glanced at Jonah, whose brow furrowed slightly, fingers tapping a subtle rhythm on his data slate. He'd been elbow-deep in those repairs mere hours ago, sleeves rolled up, enduring the acrid fumes without a flinch while her engineers flagged after half shifts. Ordinary for him, she'd thought then. Now, it felt like a pivot. Empress, Jonah said evenly, stepping forward without awaiting permission. A breach of protocol her guards tensed to correct, but she waved them back. The pattern's there. Not random. Look. He projected the slate's holographic weave. Timelines of failures across docks, vaults, and armories. Red threads linked them. Supply runs from a single auxiliary pier, crew rotations overlapping with off-duty priest acolytes. Sabotage isn't scattershot. It's coordinated, hitting weak points to force your hand. That pier's logs show unregistered access 3 cycles running. We move now, we catch them mid-strike. Vorak's crest pulsed violet outrage. Human presumption, you read our weave as a child's puzzle? Jonah met the priest's gaze steadily. Not presumption. Your logs are meticulous, better than Terran specs. Just needed cross-referencing with fleet manifests. He multitasked seamlessly, pinging security channels on his slate while outlining a containment net. Drones to the pier, Marines on intercept vectors, false manifests to lure the saboteurs into the open. Zarathia watched, her mind racing. Thalori analysts took cycles to braid such data. Jonah wove it in moments, adapting their lattice protocols to his intuitive leaps. No arrogance in his voice, just the quiet assurance of someone who'd juggled worse in forgotten field ops. Her own engineers nodded reluctantly, one murmuring, "He sees the gaps we overlook." "Authorize it," she commanded, her voice steel over silk, full counter-mobilization. "Vorak, your acolyte, stand down until we verify." The priest recoiled, but her fleet admiral, a scarred veteran with a prosthetic mandible, snapped to action, relaying Jonah's net. Within the mark, reports flooded in. Intercept at the auxiliary pier. Saboteurs in priestly robes, planting lattice disruptors on docked frigates. Thalori Marines, bolstered by Jonah's predictive vectors, netted them clean. No shots fired, no dockside fires. 15 captured, tools traced to Suncourt stores. Zarathia reconvened the chamber as the hollows replayed the takedown. Vorak's crest drooped, multifaceted eyes dimming.
A fortuitous pattern, he conceded through gritted mandibles.
Fortuitous? Jonah echoed mildly, wiping sweat from his brow. He'd routed the op from a forward console, fielding queries in Thaloric while tweaking drone paths. Your security's solid. We just layered it smarter.
She felt a crack in her formality then, a warmth amid the intrigue. This human didn't posture. He delivered.
The Lattice Law's enforcement is postponed pending full investigation, she declared, her throne looming as priests and nobles absorbed the shift. No severance. The treaty stands. Dismissed. Vorak bowed stiffly and withdrew, but the gallery buzzed. Lord Caliph, a rival noble with ambitions sharper than his iridescent spurs, rose then, his voice oily with ceremony. "Empress, if the weave is untainted, let purity prove it. I issue formal challenge to the human consort. Ritual duel in the arena of spurs. Victory restores a pure-blood match. Defeat affirms his place.
Security chiefs bristled immediately.
Punitive exile for Caliph Sovereign. The challenge targets your decree." Zarathia's crest flared briefly, controlled. Caliph played the old game. Delegitimize the outsider, rally purists. Exile would paint her tyrannical. Acceptance, a farce. Jonah's competence had just saved her docks, her fleet. She wouldn't let ritual discard him like chaff. "No," she said, rising to her full height, robes shimmering like starlit void. "The human stands under imperial protection. Convert this to regulated procedural trial, skills over blades. Engineering gauntlet, tactical sims. Thalori writes, Terran terms. His standing is recognized. Let deeds affirm it." Gasps rippled. Calith's spurs twitched in shock. No empress had bent ceremony so since the Weave Wars. Jonah turned to her, surprise flickering in his eyes before humility settled. "Appreciated, Your Majesty. But if we're doing this," he paused, slate still humming with post-op data. "Ritual processes need reforms. Blind draws on challenges breed vendettas. Log them transparently, like fleet manifests. Make it practical, not symbolic. I'm no trophy. I'm your systems officer." The chamber froze. A consort demanding reform? Yet his tone held no threat, only the same steady partnership that had mended her vault and saved her docks. Zarathia met his gaze, seeing not a supplicant, but an equal in the weave, humble, yet weaving threads she couldn't alone. Her engineers whispered approval, even the Admiral's mandible clicked in thought. "Reforms noted for council review," she replied, formality cracking just enough for a shared nod. "Prepare for the trial." "Caliph, terms accepted?" The noble bowed, crests subdued. "As you decree, Sovereign." As the assembly dispersed, Jonah lingered, coiling his slate. That pattern might tie back to Calith's house. Supply logs overlap. She allowed a faint crest tilt. Thalori for wry amusement. Noted. "Endurance like yours, it's not weave given, yet it binds tighter."
He smiled faintly, unassuming.
"Just human normal, Empress. Your fleet's the real anchor. We're stronger combined." In that moment, religion's shadow receded against policy's light. But deeper intrigue stirred. Partnership demanded risks she'd never charted alone. Explosions ripped through the void, silent blooms of plasma and debris shattering the Imperial procession's flank. Zarathia gripped the armrests of her command throne aboard the Ororath, her iridescent scales flushing with controlled fury as holographic displays fractured into chaos. Admiral Kael'thor's cruiser buckled under the assault, its hull venting atmosphere in a mortal wound that claimed him before medics could seal the breach. "Status," she barked, her voice a whip crack amid the clamor of bridge officers scrambling to reroute power. "Multiple contacts, cloaked saboteurs, Vortari signatures." Her tactical officer rasped, mandibles clicking in agitation. "They've pierced our outer screen." Convoy integrity compromised. Civilian transports adrift. The neighboring Vortari hegemon had chosen this moment to strike, their blockade fleets now materializing on long-range scans like predators from the nebulous shadow. Transmissions flooded in, demands for border accord renegotiation, laced with barbs about the debased alliance, tainting Thalari bloodlines. Zerathia's mandibles tightened. They exploited her human consort's presence as a wedge, painting her pragmatic union with Jonah Mercer as imperial weakness. But weakness yielded nothing. She would not fracture her fleet in retaliation. A new alert pierced the din. Intruders breaching the Aro-Wrath's auxiliary bays. Her guards surged forward, energy lances humming, but the saboteurs' explosives had already sown havoc, severing escape vectors. Then Jonah was there, striding onto the bridge from the adjacent tech sanctum, his human frame unyielding amid the Thalori's frantic sprints. Sweat beaded his brow, but his eyes, those steady, unblinking mammalian orbs, locked onto the tactical holos with predatory focus. "Empress," he said, voice calm as he interfaced his gauntlet with a flickering console, bypassing protocols no Thalori tech would dare. "Give me auxiliary control. I can thread us out." Her protocol officer hissed protest. "Non-standard access. Granted," Zerathia commanded, overriding without hesitation. Jonah's fingers flew, multitasking across 3 feeds, rerouting containment fields to corral the attackers into dead-end corridors, pulsing gravitic bursts to clear debris lanes, and sinking the convoy's battered drives into an improvised lattice. Humans endured such strain without falter, she noted distantly. His pulse steady where a Thalori's would spike. Debris fields parted like veils as safe corridors bloomed green on the displays. Jonah's voice layered instructions over comms, directing damaged vessels through the gaps while diverting saboteur pods into kill zones. "Civilian lead ship, Vector 047. Containment holding on your flank." A senior priestess and her entourage, key to Sun Court cohesion, were extracted from the Admiral's dying cruiser just as its core overloaded. The bridge fell hushed as the last transport slipped free. Jonah exhaled, leaning back, but his gaze flicked to new pings. Vortari blockade enforcers closing. "They're not done." "We need to punch through." Zerathia rose, her presence quelling the murmurs. No pursuit, helm aligned for open space. Open diplomatic channels to the hegemon. Full spectrum, unencrypted. Gasps rippled, her vanguard captain's crest flared in outrage. "Sovereign, they draw blood. Civilians first," she cut in, mandibles firm. "Punitive strikes invite escalation. We safeguard the Imperium's heart." Privately, she weighed the cost. Kale Thor's death would fuel court dissent, but lives preserved bought time. Jonah's improvisation had saved dozens, including irreplaceable lineage bearers. She met his nod of approval, a flicker of shared resolve cracking her formal reserve. Hours later, in the Ororaf's grand audience chamber, the Sun Court's holographic assembly convened amid incense veils and starlit murals. Faction leaders' avatars shimmered, their voices a chorus of accusation. "Appeasement for a human pet," High Prelate Vorin thundered, his robes pulsing with ritual light. "The Vortari blockade mocks us, and you parley while our admiral's pyre smokes?" Zerathia stood regal at the chamber's apex, Jonah at her flank, as consort, ceremonial and title, vital in truth. "Mockery ends when we expose their hand," she replied, her tone silk over steel. Inquiries into the sabotage turned punitive. Probes aimed at Jonah's irregular overrides. Vorin's faction demanded his sequestration, decrying human chaos infiltrating sacred systems. "The method saved your kin." She shielded him, quashing the motion with ancestral authority. Whispers spread. Was the Empress enthralled? Yet data logs showed Jonah's precision. Containment fields repurposed in ways the Lori doctrine never conceived, diverting threats without excess force. A junior tactician, crest low in deference, murmured to her peer. He juggled fields, scans, and relays simultaneously. "Our sims predict overload." Jonah stepped forward unbidden, his posture deferent yet assured. The saboteurs weren't lone wolves. Vortari agents seeded them. Supply logs match hegemon black market runs. He projected a neural map from his gauntlet, patterns linking explosive isotopes to border outposts. Thalori analysts leaned in, mandibles parting in quiet awe. Humans connected disparate threads as if breathing. Zerathia silenced doubts with a raised claw. "We strike surgically. Commander Mercer proposes a joint operation. Infiltrate their forward base. Expose the agent network fueling this blockade." Vorin recoiled. "Bind our fleets to alien whims?" "Our fleets," she corrected, committing a task group. 3 cruisers, elite lancers. Success dissolves their pretexts. Failure claims only shadows. Her gaze held Jonah's, a pact forged in the attack's fire. He nodded, humble as ever, unaware how his calm unraveling of chaos reshaped their calculus. As the assembly dissolved into terse accords, Jonah lingered, reviewing hollows. Risky, but their arrogance leaves gaps. We slip a drone swarm through the nebula, tag the agents. Your lancers mop up. She studied him, formality yielding to candor. Your patterns, the lorry sea lines. You weave nets. A rare warmth touched her voice. His resilience amid crisis mirrored her own, yet complemented it. Their planning was cut short by klaxons. Bridge feeds erupted. A coordinated Vortari strike, picket ships swarming the task group's vanguard.
They're anticipating, Jonah said, already interfacing. Empress shared command deck.
Now Zaricia signaled ascent, striding beside him as the Aurorath shuddered under fire. In the tactical nexus, their hands danced across controls, hers directing Thollery precision volleys, his improvising evasion weaves. A lance struck true, crippling a foe, but more closed. Pattern shift, Jonah murmured, spotting the feint. Flanked them with the nebula's gravity wells. She adapted instantly, Thollery discipline meeting human ingenuity. Containment fields bloomed anew, herding enemies into kill corridors while civilian evacuations cleared. Boren's cruiser, once skeptical, relayed awe. The human predicts their rote maneuvers, impossible variants. Plasma flares lit the void as they turned the tide, but the hegemon's core fleet loomed. Zerathia felt the weight. Survival hinged on this gambit. Her authority entwined with Jonah's unassuming brilliance. Partnership, once duty, now demanded everything. Deeper scans pierced the nebula, revealing the true threat, a cloaked carrier unleashing drone swarms.
They're going for the heart, Jonah said. Multitasking overrides to sink allied shields.
Zerathia committed reserves, her voice steady. Together, Commander. For the Imperium. As Vortari beams raked their hulls, she glimpsed his grin, optimistic, grounded, amid the storm. Thollery officers exchanged glances, crests rising in dawning respect. The humans normal defied their stars. Zerathia watched the holographic feeds flicker to life on the command deck. Data streams from their joint strike pouring in like blood from a fresh wound. The lorry analysts hissed in shock as encrypted logs decrypted before their eyes. Irrefutable proof of hegemon covert officers, embedded in the Imperial Senate, their signatures laced through bribery trails and sabotage orders. Arrest them, she commanded, her voice a blade of ice cutting through the stunned silence. All 212. No trials yet. Hold for my judgment. Jonah Mercer stood at her side, his human fingers still dancing over auxiliary controls, cross-referencing the data with Terran pattern algorithms that sifted chaos into clarity faster than any Thollery matrix.
He didn't boast. He simply nodded, his expression calm as if unraveling galactic treason was just another shift's work.
Her officers' crests twitched, dismissive curiosity from hours ago now sharpening into something like awe. A sub-lieutenant murmured, "Our systems strain under half that load." By the time their fleet limped into high orbit above the negotiation platform, a vast, ringed station orbiting the neutral world of Elandris, the arrests were underway. Shuttle bays hummed with Senate guards hauling collared traitors into holding cells, their crests flattened in disgrace. Zerathia strode onto the central dais, Jonah a step behind, his presence no longer a tolerated anomaly, but a tactical anchor. The Hegemon's delegation awaited below, their hulking forms bristling under armored robes, enforcement grids humming with lethal promise along the platform's perimeter. The Hegemon's envoy, a slab-jawed Krelith named Vorak, bared fangs in what passed for a smile. "Empress, your theatrics delay the inevitable. Yield the border systems or our grids enforce terms." Zerathia met his gaze, her own crest arched high. She had come to demand reparations, not beg. But as Vorak gestured, the grids activated, energy fields snapping into barriers that trapped her delegation. Drones priming plasma lances. Thollery nobles behind her recoiled. Even her sun priest attendants faltered, their rituals no match for raw power. Then Jonah moved. Without a word, he slipped a compact Terran interface from his belt, a jury-rigged slab of alloy and code that humans called a multi-tool. His eyes flicked across readouts, multitasking feeds from 3 alien systems at once. Thollery scans, Krelith frequencies, and the platform's own neglected maintenance logs. "Got a backdoor," he said quietly. Their grid slaved to a central node, overloaded protocols from last cycle's upgrades.
"I can cascade a shutdown," Borak laughed. "A gravel rumble."
"Your pet human tinkers while we claim victory." Zerathia felt a flicker of doubt, not in Jonah but in the fragility of her assumptions. Humans endured, adapted, saw patterns where Thollery precision saw only lines. "Do it," she said, her tone brooking no question. His fingers blurred. In seconds the grid stuttered, drones dropping inert, fields collapsing in a symphony of sparks. Vorak's delegation froze, their warrior instincts screaming betrayal by their own tech. Jonah didn't gloat. He patched a ceasefire broadcast through the node's speakers, his voice amplified across the platform. Stand down. Evidence of your Senate moles is galactic now. Reparations or escalation. Your call. The Krelith envoy's hide paled, fangs retracting. No territorial concessions, just leverage, pure and surgical. Sirathia stepped forward, her presence reclaiming the dais. The Imperium demands full withdrawal from contested space, economic restitution, and oaths of non-interference. Refuse, and we broadcast your treachery to every house in the compact. Vorak yielded with a guttural curse, terms signed under the gaze of hovering record drones. As shuttles departed, Zyrathia's nobles gathered close, whispers rippling. He dismantled their heart without a weapon. One murmured, "What endurance, hours in that battle, now this." She turned to Jonah, propriety cracking just enough for a private incline of her head. Your insight binds what force alone fractures. Back on the palace flagship, the air thrummed with urgency. Zyrathia summoned the Sun Court and principal houses to the grand atrium, crystal spires refracting starlight into blades of judgment. Hollow projections of the evidence played endlessly, traitors' faces, Jonah's grid takedown looping in slow triumph. Gasps echoed as crests rose in unison. My authority endures, she declared, voice resonant. But the stars demand evolution. Commander Jonah Mercer has proven his worth beyond ceremony. I name him my consort and High Consular of Integrated Affairs. Let this alliance fortify the Imperium. Murmurs swelled, shock, calculation, the political risk stark. An interspecies union challenged ancestral codes, nobility bristling at diluted bloodlines. Yet the Sun Priest High Oracle stepped forward, his robes shimmering. The charters allow reinterpretation under existential threat. Human competence reveals divine pattern. We ratify. One by one, House Lords assented, seals etching into the ether, legal precedent born of necessity, Jonah at her side, not as subordinate but partner. He met their stares humbly. No trace of arrogance, simply nodding as if this were routine diplomacy. A noble house scion leaned to another. They research humans now, endless shifts, impossible links. He learns our grids mid-crisis. What are they? Zyrathia felt the shift in her chest, formal distance yielding to something warmer. Jonah's humility mirrored her strength. Together, unassailable. Dawn crested the palace spires when alarms shattered the fragile peace. Assassination vector! A guard bellowed. Drones swarmed from hidden vents, poison barbs from House Vexar, disowned rivals striking at the Union's heart. Zyrathia surged to the defense nexus. Jonah already there, partitioning screens into a web of palace feeds. Vents on levels 3 and 7. He said, voice even. Coordinate suppressors with your sentries. I'll reroute power to flood them. She took the left flank controls, her commands crisp. Seal bulkheads. Priests, harmonic wards. Thalori precision met his improvisation. She directed crest-synchronized fire teams while he multitasked overrides, predicting drone paths from subtle exhaust patterns aliens overlooked. A barb grazed her arm guard, close. But Jonah's patch isolated the swarm, her guards mopping up the rest. They stood amid smoking husks, breath sinking. Your pattern saw what my scans missed, she admitted, crest dipping in rare vulnerability. And your wards held the line, he replied, grin flashing, optimistic, grounded. Teamwork? In the sanctum's glow, away from prying eyes, they performed the rites. Thalori crystals hummed as she etched his name into her lineage seal. He offered a Terran band. Simple alloy forged in crisis. Mutual vows spoken, commitment, not conquest. Imperial records updated. The Union sealed. They emerged to the throne dais, co-architects of renewal. Nobles bowed deeper, sun priests chanting approval. The Imperium stood stronger, humans no longer curiosities but keystones. She was born to rule and learned that true power is finding an equal.